And it's like, hey, is Penix good, or did he have McMillan and Polk? Are
right?
those guys good, or did they just have Penix?
Yeah.
We
Is
shall find
Bowers
out.
good, or did you just have Lad McGonkey?
We'll find out over the next 15 to 18 years, my
Exactly.
friend. Bobo, it's Macon.
Macon, hey there, brother. How are you?
Hey, man. I'm well, actually, not so good. I just had I had a lunch. All right, so I finally found a good khaki, and I put a pin stain in the khaki
Oh,
not 6 weeks ago. So I bought the same khaki again, a replacement khaki, and I just put a beet salad with some grilled salmon on top onto the khaki, like three separate stains
wow.
on the new khaki. And I texted my wife. I said, "Do we have a good stain remover at home?" Because I don't think we do. She confirmed we do not, but sent me a link to something we can get that apparently is some miracle stain remover. But I'm in a bad spot, I
You got to
guess.
soak
Is
those bad boys, those
I
those
know.
khakis.
I put water on it right away, and then I
Yeah.
walked out of the restaurant, and it's just
Can you like
they're
cut
toast.
off the one pair of khakis and then sew the two pair of khakis together in some sort of Franken khaki situation?
That's one of the smartest things I've ever heard because they're
Yeah.
the same color and different. I've screwed up the opposite leg, so this could work.
That could be
Now we just
perfect.
now we just need a seamster or seamstress.
Yeah.
You know, we've
Yeah.
got one. Wow, we've got one. All right, Bo. Listen, Chris and Kyle just talked to Joe Alt,
Exciting.
offensive tackle, Notre Dame. We are now less than a week out from the beginning of the draft as folks are listening to this, and it's time to talk divas,
Davis.
corners, receivers, the sleight of frame folks who make the big plays.
Yeah, the
Talk
ones
to
that
me. Where
actually
are we?
play fun football and get to touch the ball and get to have a little swag, unlike your run stopping nose guard like me. So I'm not going to lie to you, Macon. This is not an area of expertise for me. I was, in fact, not a DB or a wide receiver. Coverages can get a little tricky, but so I had to outsource some of this scouting. So bear with me. Let's start with the DBs. By all accounts, this is a very good group of defensive backs in the NFL draft. So a lot to be excited about. A lot of names here. I'm just going to hit the guys that I feel the most comfortable talking about. So let's start with Cooper DeJean from Iowa. He's a real heady player. He gets everyone lined up, kind of a gym rat, tight hips, real playbook guy. You're not going to be afraid to put him out there on the field, high football IQ. You know what I'm saying? Tough, gritty player. Maybe stiff in the hips, but a big time locker room guy. You know what I mean?
I didn't realize that Jason Sehorn and Angie Harmon got divorced. That's too bad. They were married from 2001 until 2016.
But I'm sure you picked up on that joke there because Cooper DeJean is actually a freak athlete. So one of my friends is a scout. I'm not going to say for which team, but it's a team that I know pretty well. Anyway, he said that he has great length, great upside out of Cooper DeJean. And he kind of needs to learn how to play corner a bit, but he's a freak athlete, really good with the ball in his hands. I think you probably remember that return, that winning punt return that was called back.
Yep.
I think that was against Iowa State. But Cooper DeJean should be a day one guy. Really a lot of length, a lot of talent. And, despite my basic white man scouting report, actually a fucking freak athlete. So he's really fun to watch move. Like, he's just great in space.
And we're sure on the pronunciation. I have no reason to doubt you. But it's like the mustard, essentially. He's
I
not
feel
Cooper
like
DeJean. He's Cooper DeJean.
we might need to check our sources on that one, but I kind of like the Dijon,
I do too.
So why don't we just roll with that?
Okay. He seems to be a top most cornerback boards. Maybe with this Quinion.
Yeah.
The Mitchell
Quinyon
kid from
Mitchell.
Toledo on his heels.
Yeah, and I actually that's my top guy. He is really tough. He can do it all. He's tough. He's big. He's fast. He's willing to tackle. A lot of the run game in the NFL these days, teams run a lot of duo, dive solid. It's called basically you just run a lot of double teams on the inside, and the ball almost always bounces to an unblocked corner. And so you need a guy that's willing to come down and run support and tackle. And Mitchell's a guy like that. One thing that I love about him too is he decided to turn down a bunch of money to stay at Toledo. Like he got offered, you know how the transfer portal and NIL is these days. These college kids are getting fucking paid. And if you're, the difference between making money in NIL at Toledo or a school like Alabama or Georgia, like that's actually, 6 figures. Like that's a good chunk of change. So I love the fact that he decided to stay in school, turn down this money, and he's going to get a big payday here in about a week or so. I think he'll be, I saw some drafts where he was maybe the, second guy off the board, but he's my favorite guy. He has unbelievable cover skills and, he's tough, big, fast. He can really do it all. He's my favorite guy. And again, like I said, I love a guy who's willing to be fucking loyal, stay in Toledo, and kind of play his football there. So a lot of good things on tape from him. He'll be a day one guy.
Did DBs ever yell at you guys? Did their room ever yell at your room like, hey, we can't do this all day long. Can somebody get home, please?
Yeah, usually if you have like a 6-man pressure or like a 7-man pressure, like a zero blitz where they're in man and you don't get home and then like ball gets completed for a first down or like a big play, like they'll scream at you. And honestly, you need that sometimes. But hey, that shit works in reverse too. You know what I mean? Like the ball's getting out in 2.5 seconds and we're winning rushes because these dudes are playing off 10 yards. Like they're going to catch some heat from me also. It's a two-way street, Macon.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Let me tell you about some other guys I'm excited about. There's a couple of good dudes from Alabama. I know you love to play the name game, so you're probably way ahead of me on this one. Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yeah.
And Terrion Arnold, both out of Bama. Let's talk about Arnold first. I think he's one of like Daniel Jeremiah's first DBs off the board. I'm honestly not quite as high on him as I am on Mitchell and some of these other DBs in this draft. I think he's a really good player. He's tough. He's really solid overall, but he's like inconsistent at times. Sometimes I want to see a little bit more out of him. Don't get me wrong. Like he's a really good player and I think he'll go in round 1. I just kind of like Mitchell a little bit more. I'm kind of hot on Mitchell. But it's fun when you have a good pairing of elite cornerbacks and also an elite name and Kool-Aid McKinstry. One thing that's fun about him is I think I saw a report that Saban said that he's like one of the smartest football players he's ever been with. So really solid corner, really savvy guy, smart. Should be, I think maybe he'll be a day 2 guy just because of some of these other really good names that are out there. But Kool-Aid's a really fucking good player, and it's fun to see him get praised from Saban, like talking about how smart he is as a player. It's, kind of a vet savvy, smart presence on a really good Bama defense for a long time.
Is the kid from Michigan Sainris still?
Yeah, Mike Sainris still.
I don't know if he made your list, but all I remember from his season is kind of locking up Maserati Marv, MHJ. During Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah, and obviously that's a pretty big college football game, Macon.
Yeah.
So my sources are telling me that Sainris still is more of a nickel than like an outside corner, which is good. There's obviously a need for that in the NFL, and he did play well in the Big Ten. He's an all-around good player. I haven't seen a ton of his tape, frankly, but I think he'll likely be a day 2 guy as well. But he's on my list, and he did have a really good game against Marvin Harrison Jr., which says a lot about your abilities as a DB because that guy's going to be getting the ball. A couple, I think that's mainly a guy who I'm really high on that I think is a little bit of a sleeper is Max Melton from Rutgers. He has an unbelievable feel for the game. He's got really good feel for like the presence of a quarterback, when the quarterback, like where he's going with his eyes, when he's going to get rid of the ball. And that's really helpful in like man and zone defenses. So kind of some versatility there. He's also a really good special teams player. I think he had like 2 or 3 block kicks. And that goes a long way for your value in the NFL as well. I think he's a sleeper pick. I like him a lot. I kind of like him more than like some of these other guys like Kool-Aid and Terrion Arnold, but I'm not sure how other NFL teams feel about him. But I think Max Melton's a fucking good DB. And I think he'll be a solid NFL football player. So good things about him.
I know a guy called Ben, and he went to the Pinstripe Bowl to see Rutgers play. Said the guy's a good football player. Fluid hips.
Fluid hips.
Yeah. This Max Melton.
That's a great scouting note.
On a worse note, Beau, I've been passed a note.
Uh-oh.
It is Cooper DeJean.
DeJean?
And maybe even DeJean. Cooper DeJean? Holy smokes.
I like DeJean.
Right. Well, that just means Quinyon Mitchell is definitely our top corner. DeJean.
Cooper DeJean. And that's from the University of Iowa football website.
Okay.
See, I just
pretty sure that's certain.
Macon. I don't watch the media copies. I'm just all 22, baby. I'm not,
Yeah, you don't know how to pronounce the word because you've only read it. You're
exactly.
one of those smart guys.
Exactly. One more guy that I think will be likely day one guy is Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins. He ran one of the fastest 40 times at the combine, which is always a sexy metric. But he ran like a 4.2 40, which is great. But he's also got really good length. So he's 6'1", 173 pounds, which is pretty big for a corner, like kind of a frame like Carlton Davis, who just got traded to the Lions. I played with him in Tampa. Anyway, the thing that I'm concerned about with Nate Wiggins is, he's a speed guy. He's kind of a Ferrari. How is he going to hold up in the physical run game of the NFL? Like I said, those corners are expected to make a lot of tackles. And he's a willing tackler, but he is 100% a cover guy. Like, he has elite speed as evidenced by that 40 time at the combine. I'm just concerned about his body's ability to hold up over the course of, an 18 game NFL season, but he's a great cover guy. And I think a lot of teams are very high on him. He'll be a day one guy. Like, he will tackle, but he doesn't love it. Like, he's not an overly physical player. He kind of knows what his strengths are, which is speed and coverage ability. And that's what he'll be asked to do likely. So Wiggins is good. He'll be a day one guy. So want to buzz through a couple teams that have a lot of needs here at the defensive back position to see, who might make some moves during the draft. The Bills, they need some DBs. All right. They've had defensive back problems for years. Rasul Douglas, guy who I played with in Philly, fucking great guy. Chris has probably told you some of the stories of us playing pool with him in the locker room. I love Rasul. But he played well for them, but they need a stable solution outside of him. They cut injury-prone Trey White, and they have a couple other guys who haven't really lived up to their billing as young players. A couple other teams, the Lions added Carlton Davis, who I mentioned already. They added him this offseason, but they need to replace Cam Sutton. Not going to get into that too much, but they got to replace Cam Sutton. Let's just say that. Cardinals have a lot of fucking needs, frankly, on their roster. DB is one of them. Raiders, big need. Colts, Packers need someone opposite Jair. Falcons, there's a bunch of teams. I mean, these are just a few of them. The Broncos need someone opposite Patrick Surtain, Rams, Vikings, Patriots. So a lot of these, I think there'll be like 4 or 5 DBs picked in the first round. It's a pretty good crop of young defensive back talent.
Last few years, we've had Devin Witherspoon, Derek Stingley, Sauce Gardner, Reek Woolen. Who's your best bet? Surefire. I know you love Mitchell, but who's the straight down the middle of the fairway guy you're sure is going to be a pro?
I think Nate Wiggins, if he stays healthy, will be a very good pro.
Love it. I did a little research, Beau, as we transition to wide receivers. 25-year sample of bust rates, okay? Running backs, far and away, most busts in the first round. Then it's quarterback. And then we have a little grouping of D-line, wide receiver, corner. The safest positions in the first round, interior O-line.
O-line, yeah.
And safety.
Interesting.
So when a good team takes Jackson Powers Johnson, the Oregon center, I mean, that's just going to be a no-brainer. He's going to be a good player. But these wide receivers, it's pretty hit or miss. There's never been a number one since 2000. There's never been a number one overall pick be a wide receiver. At 2, Calvin Johnson and Charles Rogers. Can't get much different than that. Hall of Famer, Megatron, one of the best receivers ever, and then one of the biggest busts ever. At 3, Braylon Edwards, Larry Fitz, Andre Johnson. At 4, Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, AJ Green, Peter Warrick. At 5, Jamar Chase, Corey Davis, Justin Blackmon. So you really got to fall in love with a guy and believe it at wide receiver, because it's about a 35% bust rate. Where are we starting?
Well, let's start with a guy who I do not think is going to be a bust. Listen, you said that there's not going to be there hasn't been a first overall wide receiver picked in a while. I don't know shit. All right. I'm just a lowly content creator making, but I do not think that there will be a wide receiver picked number 1 overall next week. But I think there are going to be a couple guys picked in the top. There's 2 guys I think could be picked in the top 5. So Maserati Marv, who you mentioned, he's fucking good, man. He's got it all. And I feel like he's been talked about so much. I don't want to like continue to beat this dead horse. He's a great player, okay? He didn't test at the combine, didn't really show off a lot at his pro day because, frankly, he doesn't fucking need to, man. He's got it all. Like, he's got speed, he's got size, he's got great hands, great catch radius. He's got an NFL pedigree. You know, Marvin Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison Sr. is a pretty decent player as well. So I think I've seen a lot of mocks. Like, he's going to go top 5. It's kind of undecided, obviously, at this point, where he's going to go. There's a lot of teams with wide receiver needs, and he's a fucking elite player, man. I mean, he's kind of a no-brainer to me. Like, he's a top 10 pick easily.
Last guy to go number 1 overall at the wide receiver position, Keyshawn Johnson, 1996.
Yeah. Dude, you are just a bevy of fun facts.
Yeah.
Quick on that keyboard, brother.
Yeah. I got a ton of them.
So Malik Neighbors from LSU is another guy who a lot of people are saying could supplant Marvin Harrison Jr. as the first wide receiver off the board. I really like Malik Neighbors. He's kind of like Tyreek Hill. Like, he's super speedy guy, but he can have like, he's weak versus press coverage at times. Obviously, he was a great pairing with Jaden Daniels down there in LSU. But one of my buddies who's a scout had this to say about him. I stole his one-liner because it was too good. A grimy competitor with speed and twitch. So he's got great speed as well. He's a really good player. I think he'll be like a top 10 pick, man. Like, he's fucking good. Like, there's really like, I'm a fucking nose guard, so I'm not going to overanalyze like these guys getting in and out of routes and things like that. He's just a fucking playmaker, man. And I like him a lot.
Well, his yak was even better than Marv. He had a 42-inch vert, 4.3 40, and then he lined up inside and outside. The splits were almost 50-50, which is cool.
Yeah, he's got some versatility.
Player.
Yeah, exactly.
And the third guy you're likely to mention, I think all 3 of those guys are potentially top 5.
Who's the third guy?
Picks.
You tell me, Meg.
Rome Odunze.
Yeah, Rome Odunze is fucking sweet. So I actually like him the most as a player. He's so fun to watch. He's got really good size too. Like, he's probably got 3 inches on Malik Neighbors. Tested really well at the combine. First team All-American, like team captain. Like, everyone fucking loves him. He's got great size, great ball skills. I think he'll be drafted I think he should go top 10. He's a really savvy route runner too. He's not overly strong as a player, like to defeat press coverage, but he's really savvy, and he has like all the intangibles, really understands the game well, which you want to see from a young player. Like, I think he's another, like, these 3 guys to me are no brainers. So the one comment that I had from my buddy who I hit up said he pairs intangibles in the pass game with great athletic ability. Not only does he set up DBs well to win, but he gets others open too. That's a fucking team guy, Macon. Yeah. So he's actually my favorite wide receiver in this group. Like, I love Maserati Marv, and I think he's a freak and a great player, but like, you know, there's so much hype surrounding him. I think Rome deserves some love too.
We bounce around to different mocks. I'll go to the most recent one from a friend of the program, Peter Schrager. He's got quarterbacks going 1 through 4 with the Giants trading up to get J.J. McCarthy. And then he has our receivers going Harrison 5 to the Chargers, Odunze 6 to the Cardinals, and then Neighbors 9 to the Colts.
Yep.
So I think Marv the best by a hair, and then those 2 won't be on the board much longer.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then we did not get the chance to break down tight ends. So I think now is a good time to talk about Brock Bowers. I love him as a player. I mean, he's not a blocking tight end. Like, let's be honest. He's incredibly productive. Y tight end has great pass catching ability. My favorite thing about him is like, he's tough, and he's like kind of no swag. You know what I mean? Like, you saw him come back from that injury with Georgia this year and play really well. He's a huge part of their team. Like, I could go on and on about Brock Bowers. Like, he's fucking great. I think he's going to be a really good, really productive tight end in the NFL. Like, we were just kind of lumping him in with the wide receiver group because we didn't have the opportunity to talk about him. Like, he's going to be a top 10 pick. I think the last mock that I saw had him going like 9, maybe. I gotta check that out. But like,
Schrags has him going 10 to the Jets. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best tight end of the bunch, and rightfully so. Like, none of the other guys are really even that exciting to talk about from a tight end standpoint. So just want to give Brock Bowers some love. One of his teammates, actually, I saw Lad McConkey from Georgia is another guy who could potentially sneak into the first round of the draft. He's like your Hunter Renfrow type wide receiver. Like,
oh, come on, Beau.
It's true, man. But he's everything that you'd expect. I mean, he's fun to watch on tape because he's really productive, and he's fucking twitchy. He's got speed. Don't get me wrong. But, like, his assets as a player are football IQ. You know, he's a really good, can run every route in the route tree. He's got great hands, really strong hands, all that shit. He's not necessarily a huge frame. I think my concern with him is, like, how's he going to hold up against, you know, more physical, more athletic DBs? Like, how's he going to get separation against these elite, NFL defensive backs and corners? But I think he's a very safe pick, frankly. Like, he's a productive player. He's shown that at Georgia. He's got really good ball skills. Like, he's a fucking good player, man. I think I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him get drafted in the first round.
Where are you taking a receiver if you're sure on a guy? Because I point you to the Kansas City Chiefs receiver room.
Yep.
That was not so hot. Now, granted, they'd love to have one of these guys at the top of the draft. They're not going to have the opportunity.
Yep.
But recently, we've seen in 21, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, top 10 picks. They worked out. 22, Drake London, TBD, but we think so. Garrett Wilson, yeah, we're pretty sure of. Chris Olave, good player. And then last year, we didn't have anybody, but we had that run at 20 with JSN, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. They all went in a row, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Sorry, was there a question there, Macon?
It was at the beginning, so it requires you
lost me.
You stay locked in. You think the top 3 guys are worthy of a top pick, and then there's a significant drop-off.
I think the rest of these guys are kind of like one team is just going to fall in love with them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft. Like, I've seen reports like 6 to 8 wide receivers could get drafted in this first round. So it just takes one team to, really love someone and take a shot on them. And whatever these guys will be a good team fit. And they could, I don't know, like, I really don't know where some of these guys will end up. But I know that there's a pool of like 8, like maybe even 8 to 10 wide receivers that have first round talent. A couple of them I haven't even got to. One guy that I think is a little bit overrated, maybe not overrated, but like I don't love him as much as a player just because he's not as consistent. And that's Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors' teammate at LSU. He's got unreal fucking ability, man. Like, his athletic ability is off the charts. He's uncoverable in college when he knows he's getting the ball, but like he doesn't play that hard sometimes. And for me, like personally, that fucking drives me insane, right? Because like you can't take plays off. No plays off, Macon. No plays off.
Not any of them.
He's not consistent, but he has unbelievable ability, and some of his highlights are so fucking fun to watch. Super appealing combination of size, length, speed, experience inside, experience outside. It's just the inconsistencies that drive me wild. I think he's a fucking first-round guy. He's got too many tools in his toolbox for teams not to take a shot on him in the first round. I'm just curious to see which team it ends up being.
I'm falling in love with the guy called Troy Franklin out of Oregon. 6'3", 187, 21 years old, gets the job done. And I want you to look out for mid-round selection, Malik Washington. And I'm not just saying that because he went to Virginia for a year, transferred from Northwestern. I'm saying it because he caught everything and then could not be tackled after he caught it.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately going to be a very good slot guy for somebody.
Yeah. I did not scout either of those guys. I'll have to go back and take a look. But I got 2 more guys I want to talk about, a couple more guys. Polk from Washington is kind of a sleeper pick. I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. Saw him sneak up in some draft boards. Don't want to get too far into the weeds with him. Xavier Worthy from Texas, fastest 40 ever, 4.21. So he's definitely a speed guy. He was inconsistent at times also in college. And then another popular name that a lot of people are talking about, Xavier Legette. He's kind of like Hayward Bay. He tests really well and has really good raw talent, but he doesn't necessarily have great feel for the game. I think he's maybe slightly overrated, overvalued, but I think he will be a good NFL player. I just don't know if he's a day one guy. So, I mean, dude, there's like still like 3 or 4 more names that we could bring up, but it's a good crop of wide receivers, man. We'll see where they end up going.
Hey, Adonai Mitchell, who apparently is now going by AD. AD Mitchell is now said to be a top 20 pick.
Another Texas guy.
Another Texas guy.
Yeah, I saw that as well. It's interesting how you have these pairings of guys, like 2 dudes from LSU, 2 dudes from Washington, 2 dudes from Texas, 2 DBs from Bama. Obviously, these are all really good teams with good quarterbacks, so it's funny how that works out.
And it's like, hey, is Penix good, or did he have McMillan and Polk? Right. Are those guys good, or did they just have Penix?
Yeah.
We shall find
Bowers
out.
Good, or did he just have Lad McGonkey?
We'll find out over the next 15 to 18 years,
exactly.
My friend.
Macon, I heard we were going to talk about college coaches and fighting. We still got time for that, or we
were, but now we're not. Yeah, because
bro.
Bottom
line is we were supposed to pick head college football coaches that we wouldn't want to fight. I was going to flip the script on you and talk about head football coaches that I want to fight, because there is no head football coach I wouldn't fucking dog out in the octagon. And there's a couple of them that I firmly think need to get slapped around a little bit. Talking about PJ Fleck. So row the boat.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But again, we have no time for this. So, Beau, thank you for your corner and wide receiver breakdown. As always, we'll talk to you here very soon.
Macon, such a pleasure. Hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday in person.
Take care of yourself.